Hello and welcome to Red Sports Talk. My name is Zach. We've officially made it through 11 weeks of the NFL season. In week 11, I went a very disappointing 8-7 with my picks, giving me an overall record of 104 and 59 on the season. Let's give you the picks for week 12. Week 12 of the NFL season kicks off with Thursday Night Football as the Buffalo Bills were 7-3, coming off of a very high-scoring victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Take on the Houston Texans, who are 5-5, coming off of a very low-scoring, close victory over the Tennessee Titans. For Buffalo, their defense continued to struggle against Tampa Bay, especially the run defense, as Sean Tucker was able to kind of run all over them. Their offense, missing a bunch of key pieces, didn't have Keon Coleman. He was sacked for that game for disciplinary reasons. Didn't have Dawson Knox, who they were going to be without once again this week. But Josh Allen finds ways to kind of take over football games. That's exactly what he did against Tampa Bay, and he willed them to a victory, having 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns to be involved in every touchdown they scored. For the Houston Texans, they had a very gritty game against the Titans. Davis Mills got his second start in a row, and he will once again start for the Bills this week. Their defense played very well against Tennessee. Their offense had its struggles. And their offense struggling. Their defense continues to play very great. But with as good as their defense has been, with their offensive struggles, I do think the Bills get the victory here. I think that the Texans might be able to run the ball pretty good with Woody Marks against this Bills defense that has given up a lot of rushing yards to teams, allowing teams to kind of run all over them. But as good as this Texans defense is, I don't think that they are going to be able to slow down Josh Allen and this Bills offense enough that this Texans offense can score enough to win. I think this could be a fairly close game, considering how good the Texans defense is. But the Bills are the overall better team. So I do think Buffalo gets the victory over the Texans here. Moving on to your Sunday games. First up, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 6-4, coming off of a pretty dominant victory over the Cincinnati Bengals, taking on the Chicago Bears, who are 7-3, coming off of a very close victory to the Minnesota Vikings, in which they won on a last-second field goal. These two teams have been playing very well. The Bears have been on a bit of a roll lately, but have been having a bunch of very close victories. For the Steelers, they're very hit or miss. They dominated the Bengals this week. The week before that, they looked, especially offensively, very poor against the LA Chargers. There's a possibility the Steelers are without Aaron Rodgers, although he is dealing with a fractured wrist in his non-throwing arm. So he could possibly play in this game. If not, it could be Mason Rudolph. Jaylen Warren is dealing with an ankle injury. He might be out for this game. But as we saw earlier in this season, Kenneth Gainwell is more than capable of being a very good starting running back. If he needs to take over as the starter, he can have a good game. He had a good game his one start against Minnesota. For Chicago, their offense continues to play well. Their defense is continuing to struggle, especially in their secondary. They've struggled a little bit against the run game. So I actually do think the Pittsburgh Steelers will get the victory. I think that regardless if it's Jaylen Warren or Kenneth Gainwell, their running game should be able to get going. Their defense should be able to get after Caleb Williams. Should be able to, kind of slow down this run game of the Chicago Bears. And if Aaron Rodgers plays, I especially think the Steelers will win, as Aaron Rodgers is the official owner of the Chicago Bears, as he owned them for so many years in Green Bay. And I don't think that changes this week. Next up, you have the New England Patriots, who are 9-2, who've been on an absolute roll, winning, I believe, 8 games in a row, coming off a victory over the New York Jets last week on Thursday Night Football, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 3-7, coming off of that loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was supposed to be their high-powered offense, could not get anything going. Their defense continued to struggle against Pittsburgh. Defense has struggled all season long, and their offense that has been able to keep them in games couldn't get anything going for them really. They are going to be without Jamar Chase in this game, as he was suspended for this upcoming week for spitting on Jalen Ramsey last week in the game against the Steelers. So I am going to go with the New England Patriots in this game. They have been on an absolute roll. Their offense is playing amazing. Travion Henderson the past couple weeks that he's had to start has looked very good. He's got 5 total touchdowns in those 2 games. And it was surprising, you have your very talented running back that you drafted in the 2nd round, that when you give him an opportunity, he plays well. Drake May continues to play at top caliber level. Their defense is playing very well. So you need to say this really quick. There is a possibility that Joe Burrow could play for the Bengals this week, as he has been practicing. He got full practice in on Wednesday, but I do think that there's no point to him trying to come back yet from his foot injury. So I do think they're probably going to stick with Joe Flacco for now. But I just have to mention that there's a possibility of Joe Burrow, regardless of who their quarterback is. I still think the New England Patriots get the victory here. Next up, you have the New York Giants, who are 2-9, coming off of a close loss to the Green Bay Packers, taking on the Detroit Lions, who are 6-4, coming off of a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Giants, it looks like they will have Jackson Dart back for this game, as he's appears to be recovered from his concussion. Giants have a very good defense that played very well against the Packers. Their offense had some struggles. And for the Lions coming off of a loss are a very, very dangerous team. They are also indoors in a dome. It is a home game for Detroit, so I don't have to worry about the elements that really affect Jared Goff. So I do think the Detroit Lions win. I think they're going to be looking for a little bit of a bounce back game after losing to the Philadelphia Eagles. Their offense should be clicking very much now that they are inside. They're going to be getting could get Malcolm Rodriguez back for this game, so that's a key piece at linebacker for them they could get to help that defense that has kind of been struggling lately. So I do think the Detroit Lions get the victory. Next up, you have an NFC North matchup as the Minnesota Vikings, who are 4-6, coming off of their second loss last week to the Chicago Bears, take on the Green Bay Packers, who are 6-3-1, coming off of their close victory to the Giants last week. In that game against the Giants, Josh Jacobs went out with a knee injury. It is not serious, but he is considered week to week, so he may not play in this game. So it might be Emmanuel Wilson who has to start. He looked very good in his playing time that he got against New York, so I don't really think their offense will take too much of a step back for this game. I think this could be a very close game, but I am going to go with the Packers to get the victory. I think that their defense played spectacular this season, should be able to get J.J. McCarthy to make mistakes. Probably going to have a few turnovers because he has turned the ball over in every one of his starts this season. I don't think that really changes this week. I think Jordan Love can play well enough to, for this offense to score points. I think their receiving game, Christian Watson played very well against the Giants as he recovers from his injury from last season. Obviously, I think Emmanuel Wilson can play well. So I think all around this offense is good enough to score points on this Minnesota Vikings defense. And I think the Packers defense will disrupt this Minnesota Vikings offense. I think the Green Bay Packers get the victory. Next up, you have the Seattle Seahawks, who are 7-3, coming off of a very close loss to the LA Rams last week, taking on the Tennessee Titans, who are 1-9, coming off of their close loss to the Houston Texans. In that loss last week, Seattle, Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions, but their defense really kept them in this game, or in that game. So I think that their defense should continue to roll and play well against Tennessee. Tennessee offense has struggled all season long. They've turned the ball over. Cam Ward has had a very poor start to his first season. He's not been put in a very good situation. So I think this defense will get after Cam Ward and get some turnovers. So I do think the Seattle Seahawks get the victory. I think they can have a bit of a bounce back game. Sam Darnold should be able to get back on track in this game as he's going against a kind of lower level defensive team. I do think the Seattle Seahawks get the victory here. Next up, you have the Indianapolis Colts, who are 8-2, coming off of a bye week, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 5-5, coming off of a close loss to the Denver Broncos. The Chiefs, all 5 of their losses have been one-score games. This is the team that last season, um, I believe, had 11 wins that were all one-score games. This year, they have not won a single one of their one-score games. Uh, the Colts are playing very well, especially Jonathan Taylor, as he is the only running back right now with over 1,000 yards. He's looking like the best running back in the NFL right now. Daniel Jones has played well for the most part. On their defense, maybe after the bye week now, Sauce Gardner should hopefully look a little bit better. This is a game that I think could go either way, but I am going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs to get the victory. The Chiefs need to be in win now mode as they are not currently in a playoff spot. They need to essentially win out to guarantee a playoff spot. They're currently in the hunt. They're a team that is at full strength, and defensively, I think they should be able to cause Daniel Jones to make some mistakes. Daniel Jones is a quarterback that I look at very similar to a Sam Darnold, and I don't trust how he's going to play in big games and in big moments. So I think he might have some turnovers. I think Jonathan Taylor could have a fairly good game. I think this will be a very close game, a very competitive game, but ultimately, I think that the Chiefs will finally find a way to win what will probably be a one-score game, and I think it will be because they make Daniel Jones make a critical mistake. So I do think Kansas City gets the victory here. Next up, you have the New York Jets, who are 2-8, coming off of their loss to the New England Patriots, taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who are 5-5, coming off a victory over the Cleveland Browns. For the Jets, they're finally making a quarterback change. They're going to start Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. Justin Fields will be the backup. For the Ravens, they are coming off a very gritty game against Cleveland, in which they actually trailed for part of that game, and Lamar Jackson did not play well. I think this should be a bounce-back game for the Ravens, as this is a lower-tier defense of the Jets. I think Derrick Henry should have a very good game. Trayvon Henderson was able to run all over this defense. I think Derrick Henry should be able to definitely run all over this defense. I think defensively for the Ravens, they have been getting better throughout the season, and whether it's going to be Tyrod Taylor this week, but regardless of who the Jets try to throw back there at quarterback, I think this defense will be able to tee off on them. I think they're probably going to get some turnovers. I think they're going to be able to slow down Breece Hall. So I do think that the Baltimore Ravens get the victory here. Next up, you have a absolute barn burner of a game as the Cleveland Browns, who are 2-8, coming off of that loss to the Baltimore Ravens, take on the Vegas Raiders, who were also 2-8, coming off of a loss to the Dallas Cowboys in a game in which their offense could not get anything going. They only tried to run the ball with Ashton Jeanty 6 times, and he only got 7 rushing yards. For the Cleveland Browns, they're coming off that loss to the Baltimore Ravens, but their defense continues to look very good. Myles Garrett leads the NFL in sacks right now with 15. Shedeur Sanders is going to get his first start, and I think this will be a good opportunity for him as he is facing a lower level defense. The Raiders defense has not been great this season. For the Browns, I think that they're going to be able to run the ball with Quinshon Judkins. So I do think that the Browns will get the victory here, and it will mostly be on the strength of their run game and the strength of their defense. I think Quinshon Judkins should be able to run the ball well, as teams have been able to run the ball against the Raiders this season. Javonte Williams had a very good game this past week for the Cowboys against this defense. And I think that Myles Garrett, he had 5 sacks a couple weeks ago against the Patriots, which broke his own franchise record. I think he has a possibility of having more than that. I think he's an opportunity of breaking his own record, getting possibly 5 or getting 6, possibly 7 sacks. So kind of pushing for the NFL record for single game sacks against this a very lackluster Raiders offense. They've been missing their 2 best offensive linemen for a big bulk of this season. So I do think the Cleveland Browns get the victory, and mainly off of the strength of their run game and the strength of their defense. Moving on, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 6-4, coming off of a very dominant victory over the LA Chargers, taking on the Arizona Cardinals, who are 3-7, coming off of a loss to the San Francisco 49ers. in a game in which Jacoby Brissett actually broke the NFL record for completions in a game as he completed 47 passes. Um, for the Cardinals, they're going to be without wide receiver Marvin Harrison for the second straight week, and they're going to be without running back Amari DiMercato. He got injured in their game last week. This is a game that I think the Jaguars will win. I know they haven't been the most consistent team, but the Cardinals have not really played great this season. They're going to be missing some key pieces in this game. I think that Travis Etienne and Bishal Tootin should be able to run the ball very effectively against this Cardinals defense. I think Jacoby Myers could maybe have a good game, and Parker Washington could have a good game at receiver in this game. I think that the Jaguars defense will absolutely be able to out-physical this Cardinals offensive line. I think offensively they should also be able to out-physical the Cardinals defensive line and the Cardinals front seven. So I do think the Jacksonville Jaguars get the victory over the Arizona Cardinals. Next up, you have the NFC East battle as the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 8-2, coming off of a very close, low-scoring victory over the Detroit Lions, take on the Dallas Cowboys, who are 4-5-1, coming off of their victory over the Vegas Raiders. The Eagles are a team that their defense has looked tremendous, especially the past few weeks. Their offense has had its struggles, but their defense has really been able to bail them out in games. And for the Cowboys, their offense has looked very good for most of the season, but their defense has severely struggled. Their defense, especially the run defense, looked much better this past week with their first game with Quinnen Williams, where they had Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark both on that defensive line. They're two very good run stuffers. It's going to be interesting to see how their run defense does this week against a much better running football team, how they do against Saquon Barkley. Ultimately, I do think that the Philadelphia Eagles will get the victory here. I think their defense should be able to slow down this Cowboys offense, and I still can't really trust this Cowboys defense. I think it could be a very close game, maybe a kind of low-scoring game once again for Philadelphia, but I do think that they're going to be able to do enough to get the victory here. Next up, in another barn burner, you have an NFC South battle as the Atlanta Falcons, who are 3-7, coming off of an overtime loss to the Carolina Panthers, take on the New Orleans Saints, who are 2-8, coming off of a bye week. For the Falcons, they lost Michael Penix to a season-ending knee injury. He's also going to be without Drake London this week, so Kirk Cousins will get the start. For the Saints, obviously Tyler Shough going to be continuing as their starting quarterback. This week, they actually agreed to part ways with Brandon Cooks, their wide receiver, who they brought in the offseason, hasn't really done much. This is a game that I think could honestly go either way because both of these teams have not played well this season. But I will give the slight edge to the Falcons just because they do still have a very good run game with Bijan Robinson and even Tyler Algier once they get close to the goal line. Their defense has not been great, but I think they should be able to play good enough against the Saints team. So I think this is another game that could be a kind of low-scoring, slugfest-looking game, but I do think that the Falcons will get the victory. Moving on, your Sunday Night Football matchup, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 6-4, coming off of their high-scoring loss to the Buffalo Bills, taking on the LA Rams, who are 8-2, coming off of their close victory over the Seattle Seahawks. For Tampa Bay, they could finally get Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin back for this game, which would be a massive boost for that offense. For LA, they have looked like the best team in football so far this year. Defensively, they've been able to play great. Matthew Stafford is playing at an MVP level as he has only thrown 2 interceptions so far all season to go with 27 passing touchdowns. Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, both playing very good this season. So I am going to go with the LA Rams to get the victory here. I just think they are overall playing so well that I don't really know what the Buccaneers could really do to beat them. The Rams have a very stellar defense. They have a very good offense that can score with pretty much any team in the NFL. And the Buccaneers, as good as their offense is with Baker Mayfield and as much of the boost as they will could get with Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin. There are some question marks on their defense. Their secondary is a little bit banged up. Um, their offensive line is banged up, so I think that the Rams defensive line should be able to get after Baker Mayfield. I think that Matthew Stafford should have another pretty good game. I think Kyren Williams could have a good game as he's had a fairly good season. So I do think the Rams get the victory here. And finally, on Monday Night Football, you have the Carolina Panthers, who are 6-5, coming off of their overtime victory over the Falcons, taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who are 7-4, coming off of their victory over the Arizona Cardinals. For the Panthers, their offense looked very good, especially their passing offense looked very good against Atlanta, as Bryce Young broke the Carolina single game record for passing yards in a game by a Panthers quarterback. The rookie wide receiver, Ted McMillan, had a couple receiving touchdowns. Their offense, the run game couldn't really get going, which I thought could be a key for the Falcons to win, would be to shut down Rico Dowdle, but they shut down Rico, and Bryce Young had a very good game. Defensively, they kind of struggled against Atlanta. Now, for the 49ers, offensively, they are getting healthy at the right time. They got Brock Purdy back last week. They got Ricky Pearsall back last week. They had a few weeks back of George Kittle. Obviously, they still have Christian McCaffrey, who's playing tremendous this season. So offensively, they're getting healthy and they're getting back on track at the right time as they try to make a playoff push themselves. Defensively, they are still without their two best defensive players, and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, as they suffered season-ending injuries earlier in the season. But overall, underneath defense coordinator, under defense coordinator Robert Saleh, they're playing very well, very good team football on defense. I think this is another game that could be very close, as the Panthers are a surprisingly good team this year, but I think the Niners will get the victory. I think that Brock Purdy is a very good quarterback to show that he is better than Mac Jones. Mac Jones played well, but Brock Purdy came in and played a little bit better than Mac Jones has been playing. Ricky Pearsall coming back from his injury is a big difference maker in this receiving game. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey just always going to be great. And for the Panthers, I can't trust the inconsistency of Bryce Young, because he'll have games where he'll look tremendous, just like against the Falcons, and then you'll have games where he barely shows up. Defensively, there is a lot of concern as well for Carolina, just because of how good this 49ers offense is right now and how good they're looking like they can be once now that they're healthy. So ultimately, I do think the 49ers will get the victory in what could be a very close football game. Let me know in the comments if you guys think you're going to win this week. Games you guys are looking forward to. For me, I'm actually very much looking forward to the Sunday night game between the Rams and the Buccaneers. Also, looking forward to the Patriots game, as I always do. But, let me know what you guys are looking forward to in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, see ya.